I'll introduce myself. Okay, start recording. Awesome. So let's go ahead and talk through the protocols for tonight, and then we'll get rolling on what's going to go on. Okay, we have before the public today. We have an application for an area variance at 111 East Main Street, which is the most recently constructed McDonald's right along the edge there in that Price Chopper complex there. Okay. It is an area variance request for a shed. The process this evening will be basically, well, let's introduce my board first. I'll give everyone a wave. On the board right now, I'm the chair. I'm Conrad Stuntz. We have Mike Snow on the board, Caitlin Hills on the board, and Barbara Beekman. Okay. Andy Whittier is serving as our alternate on the board this evening. Okay. We also have on the meeting here representing the village. We have Tim Nolan here representing the village, and then the applicant is Steve Wilson. Okay, so what I'd like to do first is we will hear from Tim about the application and why it was turned down very briefly, and then Steve can talk to us about why he would like the area variance, or why they like the area variance in this case, and then we'll open up for any public comment that people might have questions or comments, and from there. And the board is welcome to raise a hand or chime in whenever we'd like to. If you'd like to ask for clarification from the CEO or from Steve, the applicant. So at any point there's a point of clarification, just go ahead and ask, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Any general questions on how we're going to flow tonight? Sweet. All right. So Tim, take it away. Tell us what do we have before us tonight?
Well, this issue at hand is the shed that was put in without prior notification. It was never part of the site plan. And a week before opening, I was on site and I noticed there was a shed there, and it was right on the property line between McDonald's and Mountain Mart at 103 East Main Street, and McDonald's at 111. And McDonald's has a hyphenated address as well. It's 105 and 111 East Main Street. And at the time when I noticed it, I wasn't aware that, it was part of the site plan approval. And I went back to my office and reviewed all the records, and there was no mention of the shed, and there was no mention of it on the plans. So therefore I put it in stipulations of the CO, and the CO reads, relocate shed to be in compliance with the Village of Canton zoning code 325-32 accessory buildings, section E, non-residential accessory buildings shall comply with the front and side yard requirements for principal buildings to which they're accessory, and shall not be closer to any real property line than 10 feet. And this shed is directly on the property line. And so, and at that point, Boulder Engineering applied for a building permit. With a building permit application, they applied to have a shed located in that location. And I turned them down. I denied the permit. And here we are discussing that matter right now.
Great. Okay. Anyone have any quick questions for Tim? Okay, I think that summarizes it. And so just to be clear, there is that shed was actually placed there, and here we are. We're kind of doing the back end deal on this thing, correct? We're trying to figure out if it could stay or not. Okay, so it was actually put in site. You give it a conditional CO so that we could request the area variance on this location on the shed.
Correct.
All right, Steve, that's your understanding of what's going on too?
It is.
Okay, great. All right. If no one has any questions for Tim, let's go ahead and Steve, let's hear about what you want us to do and why.
Yeah, so the operator needs the shed for, not surprising, the reason most people need sheds is for some additional storage, lawnmower, snow blower type equipment. He also uses it for some promotional materials. There's just not, the buildings themselves are relatively efficient in their layout, and there's literally no unused space in a brand new McDonald's. There's something for everything in every space. So it really doesn't come up with extra storage. So hence the reason he's looking to have this additional shed for, like I said, the things that everybody uses a shed for, that additional storage, rakes, shovels, snow blower, lawnmower, and in this particular case, additional space for promotional materials that McDonald's would need periodically.
Okay. Great. So quick question for you on the application. It requests a 23-foot side yard variance and a 45-foot rear yard variance. Can you explain those numbers a little to me? Because I'm a little confused on a 12 by 20 shed that's sitting basically where it is on the map. I'm confused about how those numbers play out.
Hold on, I can just pop the application back open.
Oh yeah, no worries. While Steve's looking for that, guys, anyone on the board, you guys all familiar where this location is that we're talking about on the property? We had a chance to swing by or kind of understand right where it is, right behind the dumpsters. Basically, he went onto a pad right behind the dumpsters there. Okay.
Conrad, do you have those photos?
I do have photos about what it looks like. Caitlin, can you give me the ability to share screen?
I'm sorry, Tim, could you confirm the side yard setback and the rear yard setback are?
Well, in this case, you only have 10 feet for the shed.
No, I'm saying, what is the required setback?
For the side yard, I have to look it up, but I think it's like 25 feet.
That's a C1 district?
If you put it at 25 feet, you'll be identical where the existing McDonald's is now.
Right.
25. No, the McDonald's is 33 feet from the side property line.
While we look at that, I'm going to go ahead and share a couple images here. They were taken of the shed and the shed's location just post construction, just so we're all well aware of like what's going on there. I think that most of us know exactly what the location is and have seen it, but here, let's go ahead and do this. Okay. Now, that's the property corner. Okay.
Well, that's a property line.
Right. That's the property line. And then if we go to this one, let me figure out my shares. Okay.
There we go.
That's basically the edge of the shed and where the property line is.
Right. That is the line between McDonald's and Mountain Mart.
Right.
I mean, Steve says he's correct that I don't know the numbers. I have to scale it off on the plans behind me. McDonald's itself is well within compliance of the 25-foot setback in the side yard. But looking at that shed, and you can even if you look at that concrete that is closest to us on the left-hand side, that's the curbing of Mountain Mart.
Right.
So,
all right. So I think we have a good feeling for basically where this sits on the property and what we're trying to look at. The side yard setbacks, we're calling the side yard, just to be clear, we're calling the side yard the Mountain Mart side of the lot, and the rear yard being the side towards the parking lot, price jumper,
Right.
correct?
So in the C2 zone, the side yard setback is 25 feet and the rear yard setback is 50 feet.
Right. Are we C2 or C1 there, Tim? I thought you were C1.
No, you're C2.
Or C2 there, okay.
C1's downtown.
Yeah. All right, so, I mean, those setbacks basically, which is why we have the 43-yard rear yard setback. So we're asking for a 5-foot offset on the back property line, right?
And it's a 23, and we're about 2 feet off the property line on the side yard, hence
Okay.
the 23 feet of relief.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
All right. All right.
the
So,
violation really has nothing to do with that 25-foot side yard, because the McDonald's building itself is not in violation of anything. It's the
Right.
accessory structure.
right, so we're looking at the accessory structure, and the reason why it's before us today is basically is for the application, and I was asking for the clarification on the numbers of 23 and the 45, which is the offsets on the property line. So we're asking for relief in those two areas. And basically, we're building for an accessory structure within 10 feet of the property line. So
Yes.
the application has us 2 feet off of one property line and 5 feet off the other property line, the back property line, okay? Great, so like in your application itself, you basically said there's no locations for the shed on the property. Looking at your site plan, I mean, this property's pretty tight. Did you guys pursue the idea of, just turning it 90 degrees and leasing another parcel that's 20 feet long right behind it from the parking lot?
Acquiring additional property.
Yep.
We didn't particularly look to acquire additional property for the shed. I know that when we were setting up the lease parcel, or I'm sure it was the parcel from the larger plaza for the original McDonald's, there wasn't any movement on getting any additional property. This is it.
Okay. All right. And you didn't approach them about like leasing a parking spot to put your shed on or anything like that. There's no
We
further.
have not.
Okay. There's no further conversation with an abutting owner on that one.
No.
Now, out of curiosity, I mean, just to make sure, like this pad does not fully support this shed, correct? This shed is overhanging this pad by a foot or two, like the whole left side of the shed is sitting on mud. That is a planned structure that way?
I don't think, no, the shed was not planned. I think the operator in his new digs got a little enthusiastic about things perhaps, and placed the shed there, obviously without getting a permit, and that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure. I mean, I was looking at this thing and it's rolling against the bollards for the trash stuff.
Yep.
And it couldn't go any more over, but it's like it's hanging off the backside of the concrete pad.
Right.
So that was a little bit of a question mark for me, just because we're playing the after the market game. So we'll go from there. Cool. Any other board questions for Steve or for Tim at this stage? Okay. Great, let's go ahead and open up for public comment for any of the public. I think, Pete, you are the public. If you'd like to chime in or ask questions or make statements, that'd be great. If not, then we totally understand. I'm assuming, oh, there you are.
No, sorry. No, I'm good. I know where the shed is. It is pretty tight where it is, but I'm fine.
All right, thanks. Great public
Yep.
comment. All right, perfect. All right, for those of you who weren't on the call earlier, Pete is from the Best Western across the way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for Steve there as part of the public hearing? Okay. So my gut feel at this stage, guys, is what I tend to lean towards is closing the public hearing and opening it as a meeting for the ZBA, where we'll discuss the basically the 5 points on a an area variance, and we can ask Steve some more questions for more clarification about various things, or Tim and things like that. Does that work for everyone?
Yes, that'll work.
Cool. All right, so Jenny, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Pete, you're more than welcome to hang around for the public meeting. It's just basically the only true difference between that is between the meeting and the hearing. Is the hearing is we need to hear everyone, and the public meeting it's where the ZBA discusses things. And if we call on you to ask to talk, then that's great. Otherwise, you're just kind of spectating. Okay.
That's fine.
All right.
Thanks.
Cool. Yep. All right. So let's look at this. Like, we have a shed that appeared in a site on the parcel. It's now before us as an area variance. It is based on the C2 setbacks. It is well within the setback zones. There is, I would probably agree with Steve that there is no other real parcel on this site that you can shove a 240 square foot shed. But let's talk through some points. If I go through like on an area variance, there's those 5 bullet points that the New York State happily provides us with to discuss. So let's go ahead and we'll take them one by one and just talk about them. I'd like you to just chime in, basically. If you have anything to add, just go ahead and chime in because it makes it a little more real. It's always entertaining on Zoom because we get like the Zoom mute. So just go ahead and chime in whenever you want to, all right? So, all right, so whether an undesirable change will be produced in character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. So does this shed change the feel of the neighborhood at all?
It's next to a car wash.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's right now it's next to like two storage containers.
Right.
That's their sheds.
Those containers are temporary.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Those are construction containers.
Yep.
Yeah, that picture's a little old. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, the pictures from, right when we first went in.
They're still there.
They are. KFC will be done eventually. So what do you guys feel? You think it's, I mean, does it change the neighborhood feel? I don't know.
I don't see where it does.
Yeah. That's kind of where, it's kind of like backing up to a parking lot. So that's an easy one, I think. Okay. Is there another way that they can get the alternative to, this variance basically? Is there a way that we can think of that, if we're looking for storage for, promotional materials, soft goods, and landscape equipment basically is what it sounds like. Does anyone see any magical location on this site plan that? Maybe not on the existing site, but I'd be curious to know what the feasibility of, turning it 90 degrees and putting it over 2 parking spots in the adjacent parcel and renting spots from that, if they don't need them or something like that, that's a feasible alternative. But I don't know. Got a lot of input. Like it. Good meeting.
Maybe.
All right, so is the requested variance substantial? What does that mean?
Is that a numeric value? Like number of?
Is it a substantial, is it like changing the lot? Is it like coverage? Is it, is it a huge, change to the parcel itself? Is it like, basically they're, I think the example they use when they're talking about this sort of thing is it changing the entire feel of the parcel?
Lot
just lot coverage, that sort of thing. Things like that. I don't know. I wouldn't feel like it's a shed. I think we're here talking about a shed that's in a location that's inside a setback line, right?
Right.
That's the fact of the matter. Is it a substantial change? No, it looks like a shed. It's 240 square feet. It is at least, I'd say 228 of the square feet are sitting on concrete. Okay. The other, probably 24 square feet are sitting over mud. Okay. Would the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. Tim, do you know, my only question on what the environmental impacts, when I talk about runoff and things like that, okay? I have, looks like a swale line behind there on the Mountain Mark property. Is that do you know if that's a natural buffer or a planned buffer of growth line on that?
I don't know if it's a planned buffer. It's been there a while. I think it's Phragmites gone wild, actually.
Yeah.
And if anything, any detriment will occur, it will be to the shed.
Okay. Okay. So my question then is basically when you walk behind the shed, there is a pitched asphalt drainage area. It goes back to on the plan. There's a proposed manhole hill by others. It's a pitched asphalt drainage into the drainage pit behind there, which was,
Yep.
It looks like it was poured. What's that, Tim?
Catch basin?
It's a catch basin, yeah. And it looks like it was designed to gather runoff from that pad. Okay.
I would
So,
agree.
with this shed now dumping its water half onto a mud zone instead of gathering the rainwater on this pad, are we going to see an environmental impact on this, on this property line that can be mitigated in some way?
Well, it's, I just could point out if I could that it's, there's existing impervious surface there now.
Yep.
This is just putting the shed on top of existing impervious surface. There's really not any additional runoff. It's just a different form straight from the concrete or from the shed.
Yeah, unfortunately, the only thing that changes there is that that drainage catch basin is designed to pull it straight from the concrete. So we're taking half that load that used to hit the concrete and pitch on into the catch basin. Now it's going onto the mud. That's the only real change there. So it's half the roof line basically. So it doesn't change the impervious nature. I mean, it's still, you're just increasing your impervious area by a minuscule amount, but you're taking half it and dumping it onto the mud as opposed to the catch basin. Yeah.
I would agree.
I don't know. Anything else to add on the environmental side, guys? Any thoughts on this? Okay. Well, and number 5, everyone's favorite is number 5. Where the alleged difficulty was self-created. So keep in mind, basically, with any sort of area variance are not like use variances. Use variance, basically, they fail a test, they're kind of done. Area variances, we can always talk about mitigation and we can weigh the cost versus the benefit, okay? So even if we're like, no, it's, or yes, or whatever, we can always mitigate it. We can always work with it, okay? Our goal on an area variance is to balance the request with the neighborhood, with everything like that, okay? All right, so let's talk about self-created.
Would be the simplest question.
Yeah. Yep. So Steve, a question for you. When these plans were drawn up originally, did the owner request you guys fit a shed on this property?
No. It was an afterthought.
Okay. This seems like something that basically, that if we're looking at planning, I suspect that you probably could have found a space within dimensions or worked with planning to fit a shed somewhere if we had to reconfigure things before we get to the stage where we're putting sheds somewhere. But I don't know. Do you guys feel like how are you guys reading this?
I guess I don't fully understand, and maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm just looking too much into it, but it's like, why was this kind of an afterthought? Like McDonald's seems like a big corporation and a lot of planning, I'm assuming, went into this. And did they not, I mean, did something happen? Like that there's going to be a need for a lawnmower and a snowblower and things like that? Or I guess I'm just kind of confused as to how
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we could use a shed.
It's a good question. When we were doing the design and I think even into this very start of construction, they still hadn't decided what operator was going to purchase this store. And every operator has a little bit different way of doing things. Believe me, you can go around to a lot of McDonald's and you don't see sheds. But the way this guy does his maintenance and this particular operator, you know, he needs that equipment on site to do it. So it's just kind of the particulars of this operator.
All right. So it kind of was a pop-up need.
And then my other question too, which I don't know, this doesn't really relate anywhere. It's just a curiosity of mine. It's like, what does like Mountain Mart or like Price Chopper think of it? Do they have any issues? Have they weighed in at all?
Tim, have you heard anything?
I sent the letters out. I only
We've been
heard
notified. All right.
Nancy, I forget her name. She's an executive at Mountain Mart, and she called me for some questions on why she was receiving this letter, and I called her and informed her about it, and never heard back from her. So,
Yeah, Caitlin, I haven't heard anything either. I don't think that the Globe Corporation is too focused on the space behind their, you know, the backside of their left parking lot. So but they were all notified by mail. But
yeah, I mailed all property owners within 100 feet.
yeah. So self-created,
I'd say it was, yes. I mean,
a lot of
I
head
don't
nods.
know why- how they come up with the dimensions of the shed. It's a pretty big shed.
A 240 square foot shed is,
I mean, they
solid
could have made it, almost made it to fit and not be in this situation too. I mean, they could have. So it wasn't that long big. I mean, is it 20 feet long? Is that what it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the
Put a
question.
lot
Would we be more comfortable with smaller shed there? Like, would we allow that? If they came back in instead of a 12 by 20, if, you know, can we look at a, you know, something more reasonable? You know, can we fit it on the pad? Could we go, you know, an 8 by something, or like a, you know, instead of a garage door, could we go a man door? You know,
Well, the width, is that the problem too? I thought more, it was more the length.
they
Where's
both
it
are.
hang-
They both
Okay.
are violations, right?
So the width is within 2 feet of a property line. The length is within 5 feet of a property line. Basically, the whole structure is inside the setback on the rear property line. Right? Actually, the whole width is too. The whole thing basically is, you know, surrounded by area it's on the setbacks. Okay. So what I'm hearing from the board, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and basically shout out, because I'm hearing, like, if I was looking at my 5 tests, like, I'm not going to vote anything like that, but I just want to make sure that I'm kind of summarizing what we're looking. Does it create an undesirable change to the neighborhood or nearby properties?
No.
I don't think so on that one, right? Basically, it's a shed, right? Is it a substantial request? A lot in terms of lot coverage?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Now the question is whether, to the benefit they're really seeking that area variance, it sounds like they're basically looking for storage for stuff, right? If we look at the question whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance. Can anyone think of, like, on the parcel, is there anything that we can think of that I'm not thinking of that, you know, we can get this operator's storage that they want? mean, I don't know I mean, clearly the inside of the building is jam-packed. Well, I mean, I'd still come back to basically, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I
They
think
could
it's hard to balance the fact that, you know, they didn't do it the right way. And there shouldn't be a reward for that.
Yep.
I mean, that's part of my feeling. On the other hand, it isn't creating a problem particularly, but it was not done the way you're supposed to do it. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it, you know, it feels a little bit like, oh, well,
It does feel a little bit like that to me, and it feels a lot like me. And this to me, that's kind of like a, you know, instead of asking for permission, they're asking for forgiveness.
yeah.
You know, and that's a hard situation to be in from a, you know, a planning perspective and a Board of Appeals perspective. You know, it's like, oh, here's the shed. You know, I've actually hooked wire, I've wired it up and everything already. I have electrical running into the outside of it. You know, what are you gonna do? But we need to make sure that we talk about, you know, whether we're looking at these things and what we feel like, is there, like, part of what we can do is we can try to propose a feasible alternative. If we can think of something that would match their needs and satisfy, you know, our requirements. That's kind of, you know, why not? You know, if we can find something, we can try.
Would that be your suggestion, that they buy some more land?
What would my suggestion be?
I know, I said, would that be your suggestion, that they purchase an additional part?
I think that in terms of a feasible alternative for matching setbacks, I mean, it seems like to me that we have a parking lot behind it, and if we put basically a double wide in it, you know, it doesn't seem like it'll impact things. But you know, I'd be curious to see what that cost implications are. You know, so, but I'm not, you know, that would be one alternative that has not been pursued. That's, you know.
Comrade, I got a question. Is the land, you had mentioned leased?
Yeah.
That they own it, or is it leased through the person that owns the shopping center?
The document that I got said lease. Steve, do you want to clarify that?
I think that's correct. Yeah, it's a lease parcel.
Yep, it's a lease parcel.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right. I'm the alternate here, but let me just chime in for 1 second. For me, aside from the Barb's point about whether they're asking for forgiveness or permission, which I understand, I don't know that adding additional space on the back adds much value. The fact that it's hidden behind the garbage dumpsters, I didn't even notice it until I went and drove by to prepare for this meeting. It's hidden behind the garbage things, doesn't seem to impact the neighborhood in any way. I don't have any huge issue with, you know, having them have a storage shed there, as long as there's no environmental impact, as we've talked about. But adding additional space, you know, it's still, you know, a shed in a parking lot. I don't know if it improves our situation in any way. I'm just as happy having it tucked away behind the garbage dumpster as it is now. So I don't have any sort of huge issue with those things. Whether it's self-imposed, obviously, you know, I think that seems more obvious to me. But the rest of the 4 criteria, you know, it seems just fine. Yeah, I wish they asked for it before they put it there, but I can get over that.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Yep.
I just have one other question. Am I right that when you get an area variance, it doesn't set some kind of precedent?
It does not.
So it's
In-
not, okay, because
it's
that would
each-
be my other concern.
Exactly. So the use variance is much more stringent. The use variance would set a precedent, but it's like spot zoning. We tend to be really stringent on those. The area variance is basically for this parcel, this location, this use.
Each
this
one
area.
is taken in its as
Yeah.
a whole. Okay.
Mhm. Yep. So
And nobody's been by there on one of these rainy days to observe your point, Conrad, of the
no,
water.
I just thought of that. Like I didn't pursue it over the last couple of days to go, you know, track the.
To actually see what happens to the water on the mud side.
Well, right now, I mean, I'll tell you, on one side of the building now is piled high with well, signage saying now open and a bit of polyiso insulation. It's kind of turning into like the holdover semi-outdoor special storage location that sheds are known for.
The ancillary storage.
Yes, it's touching a shed, therefore it's kind of like in the shed, right?
Mhm.
I have some of those buildings. Yep. Okay.
I just was curious if what, we don't know the answer to what the water does because we haven't observed it, but okay.
Right.
You know, again,
Yeah, we
Conrad,
don't-
I'd rather have that stuff inside the shed than piled up outside the shed. I mean, from an aesthetics point of view, I'd rather have it inside so we're not seeing it. If
That'd be
there's
nice
an
if it-
environmental issue, put a drainage pipe on there and
Or
funnel
put-
it into the,
Yeah, a gutter that goes to
You know,
the drain in the back.
put a gutter down it. If that's the problem, just stick a gutter on it and be done with it. For my, again, just my sole opinion.
Right, and that seems like, yeah, I mean, the thing is that, sheds are sheds, like people use them as they're gonna use them. You can't dictate how someone's gonna use a shed. And, sheds are great horizontal, vertical surfaces to lean things against. But I mean, it comes down to basically when we're looking at this area variance, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that it's a self-created thing, okay? But I think, like, what I'm hearing, I'm not hearing anyone on the other 4 points being like, it's not an undesirable change. Is there a feasible alternative? Not really. Like, for the need for a shed, there's not a feasible alternative. But the thing is that we don't really, so we are allowed to, as a ZBA, we are allowed to do like request conditions. If we decide to pass this, if we decide to vote this and allow this shed to stay, we are allowed to ask for certain mitigating factors, right? Which should be things to consider. I mean, it sounds like people, I mean, are kind of leaning towards or not. I'm not quite sure. But we can basically talk about the environmental impact of the fact that for me, from a building perspective, it flat out bothers me, the fact that the entire side is unsupported. I mean, there is no concrete under it. There is no, like, they didn't put down cinder blocks or anything like that. They didn't put down block or anything under a whole side of the shed. That seems like an area for a new commercial construction. At least it should reflect attention to detail like that. But is it an environmental impact? I don't know. That's just like, it might be just my
I
irritation.
mean, I think what you said earlier, they're gonna pay the price for that eventually.
Right. Yeah,
So-
I mean, you put wood on dirt, one wins.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do you guys feel? Do you want to think about this more, come back and vote on things? Do you want to vote on things? Where do we stand as a board? Do you want to try to close this off and vote one way or the other about, does the benefit, does or does not outweigh the detriment? So the question for you guys is, do you want to vote now? Do you want to think about it for a while, then come back and vote? We have like 60 days from the public hearing to make a final decision, so.
I don't have a problem voting tonight.
I kind of think we could vote tonight. I don't think anything's gonna change in the next
Yeah,
60
right.
days.
I could vote tonight.
The only thing I'll be looking at basically is the question of like the rainwater stuff, but we can always put that into our conditions if we're concerned about that, if we pass it. All right, well, let's go ahead and, all right, so we have the 5 factors we talked about, whether the undesirable change to the neighborhood can be achieved by a feasible alternative, whether it's a substantial, basically, would the variance have an adverse impact on physical or environmental conditions, and whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. We have those 5 points. We have talked about them. Let's see here. So what we're going to do is we'll have to vote verbally. Basically let's see here. So the benefit does not outweigh the detriment. So an aye vote would be that the benefit to the applicant does not outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood. Therefore, the request is denied. No, that's a nay vote. We're going to nay is deny, aye is approve. Okay. And then if we do end up with an aye vote, then we will talk about any conditions we want to put on this area variance, if we want to put any conditions on. Okay? Does that sound reasonable to everyone?
Mhm.
All right, sweet.
Yes.
All righty. I get to vote last because I'm the chair. It's one of my prerogatives. Whee, I win. Okay. So let's, does anyone want to vote first? Mike, Caitlin, or Barb? So let's go by alphabetical by first name. No, we can't do that. That's Barb. That's Barb's first meeting. Let's go seniority on the committee. Mike, you get to vote first.
Aye.
Okay. Caitlin
Aye.
and Barb.
I'm gonna vote aye also.
Okay. Even better is when you guys all vote aye, I don't actually have to vote because it passes. Okay. So now the conditions, okay? Let's think about conditions here. What can we do? Like we did talk about the runoff issues. We talked about the, dirt versus wood, dirt's gonna win. I think Steve knows that already since sounds like he was not heavily involved in the planning, location, or placement of this shed. He just got to do the ZBA meeting. So are there any conditions that we want to minimize? Do we feel like there should be any, I think that in minimal, we should make sure that half the building is guttering into some sort of drainage.
I agree with that.
Okay. I think it's a simple gutter along that back edge to handle any runoff, any water.
Do that.
Seems like a pretty simple thing.
Conrad, can I ask a question?
Yo.
Steve, you're an architect, right?
Engineer, but go ahead.
Engineer. Do you have the same concern that Conrad obviously shares with regard to the placement of the footing of the shed?
Honestly, I would have to look at that drainage closer in relation to, I got a feeling the board's gonna make me, or the owner pour some additional concrete to support that edge. I'd have to look at that in relation to the drainage way through there and see if there's gonna be an issue. I know there's a solution, I just don't know I don't know if there's really even an issue, but I'd have to look at it closer.
That was really the question. Is there a relatively easy solution to that problem?
I'm sure there is. Yeah, I'm sure we can
And-
make something work. I mean, it's a shed. I can't
And maybe
believe
to
it would hold
Conrad's
up
point, it doesn't
a
matter to
big
us
drainage-
because if
it would create a big drainage problem.
because if we don't fix it, the shed's gonna rot and decay and they're gonna have to replace it anyway. So
Exactly.
thank you. Yeah, thanks for your opinion.
So with that in mind, should we identify the solution or should we identify that we'd like a solution proposed to us and taken care of in terms of mitigating runoff from that shed, be it drainage, be it something else like, I mean, what do you guys think? I think just mitigating I just can't stand it, increasing the impervious structures that are dumping onto dirt as opposed to what was a catch basin. For me, that seems, silly. I mean, we could just mitigate the runoff from the roof in some way. And it's a reasonable solution. If we can work together with that, that'd be fine. We could also say it has to be gutters,
I
copper.
would say we have to
gutters.
say it's gutters. I mean, whatever, just to ensure that the water runs to the catch basin.
Okay,
Yeah, I think if we leave it open-ended, that would be better.
I think if you just say makes positive drainage.
positive drainage. Okay,
Yes, that's the key term.
I can do that.
Yep.
Okay. So we look at the drainage, the footings are the footings, it's wood on dirt. It seems like a reason, is there any others, like, it's pretty hidden back behind there. Is there anything I don't think any screening towards Mountain Mart is necessary, anything like that. It's right on the property line, basically going 2 feet off. We can't do much there. Yeah, Tim?
Maybe they can put some stone where the dirt is, so it's not wood on dirt.
Right, so create some positive drainage and so site cleanup, I mean, make it look like it's part of the planned parcel. That's what I'd love to say, but I don't think that's really
Well,
Appropriate.
Didn't Steve just mention that they probably will finish the foundation under there anyways?
They'll
I was
probably do
thinking.
something.
Yeah,
If he looks at it,
Yeah, we'll put block there or something, yeah.
something to take care of the, like, basically make positive drainage and clean it up a little bit. I mean, that's
Yep.
what we really want is basically so it looks like it's a planned piece opposed to a dumped shed. I mean, well, I mean, come on, it appeared. We're dealing with an appearance of a shed. A magic shed. Okay,
well, yeah, everything, the whole area they did a nice job, like, looked nice in there too, so
yeah. A bunch of it looks nice and then, I mean, then you get back there and you're like, it's all about the shed.
like I
Okay.
said, I'm along with, I think it was Andy, it said they hadn't even noticed the shed till this come up and then we looked at it. I've gone through the drive-through 3 or 4 times, so.
No, I mean, it blends in. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that was the owner's viewpoint on it too, was that it was a hard
won't
top
notice
there.
it. You won't notice it.
Tim noticed it, took care of it for us, brought it to us. Okay. All right, so other than the positive drainage, I missed, like, I'd love to put down stone or something like that, like, if we can take, I'll work on the language a little bit, basically, we're trying to mitigate any extra runoff in the surrounding area, okay? And any runoff into across property line or anything like that by creating positive drainage back to catch basins or using some sort of hardscape, like crushed stone or something that's, inflowing with the site, right? So I'll try to write something there that sounds reasonable, but it's not too restrictive. It's not going to lock into silly games and leave Tim with, measuring size of stone. Make sure it's, 1-. All right, cool. All righty, so is there anything else on this for this meeting today? Okay, so we have the Steve at this stage and Tim at this stage. I will be writing up the decision. It'll take me a couple days to get that all together, and then I'll be sending it over to Tim. And Tim, when it's all set, you can send it off to Steve, and then we can work on any of the conditions that are finally written in there, which basically probably the positive drainage component on it. But for now, the shed will stay, and we'll just work on the drainage around it and go from there. Okay. Cool.
I'm not, do I come back before the board?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
You're good. Why, do you want to?
No. Maybe not for a shed, but sure. All right, so you're gonna write up a decision for approval with conditions and then give it to Tim, and he's gonna forward it to me.
You got it.
Thank you very much, all.
No problem,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Appreciate it. Have a great night.
You too. Bye now.
Thank you.
All right, you can stop recording. We'll close out this meeting.